Hey guys, this is Kaitlyn, co-founder at Face the Fear, back with another wedding series video, whoop whoop. Obviously, I'm feeling very bridal today, hence the white dress, and apparently the whole world is also feeling very bridal today, because as you can see, everyone else is in white too. So, that's awesome. Today I just wanted to create a quick video with a few tips and tricks that I have learned so far in our wedding planning journey. Some are tips and tricks that are just more practical focused. Others are more focused on saving money and trying to plan a wedding on a budget. So all that to say, I hope you find this helpful, whether you are in the middle of planning your own wedding, maybe will plan a wedding in the future, helping someone else plan a wedding, blah, 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 you get the picture. So I will just go ahead and dive right in. First of all, one of the biggest tips I can offer that we didn't know until it was kind of too late to plan all this is think about the timing of your engagement to the timing of when you may want to have your wedding. And what I mean by that is when we got engaged in October, I had no idea how far in advance people actually started planning their weddings. So when we got engaged, I started, looking into venues, doing a little research on vendors towards the end of October, beginning of November. And I quickly realized that a lot of the places we were interested in were already completely booked up for the entire next year. So I started freaking out a little bit and thinking, oh my gosh, are we gonna have to wait like an entire year and a half, 2 years before we can get married? So I went into just full-on wedding planning mode and ended up booking a bunch of my vendors and the venue within a very short amount of time. And while everything worked out okay, I would definitely say that it would be better to have to not plan everything so much in crunch time and have a little bit more time to do your research, relax, take your time in the process, maybe even compare vendors a little bit more to try to get better discounts, things like that. So if you think you might be getting engaged soon, if you've talked to your significant other about it, there is no shame in going ahead and starting to make some phone calls to specific vendors that you're really interested in. If you have a favorite photographer and are dying to have them at your wedding, give them a call before you're even engaged just to see what their availability is and just start thinking ahead. That will save you so much stress once you actually get engaged and start officially diving into the wedding planning process. Another tip is make sure from the very beginning you sit down with your fiance, your significant other, and talk about the top 5 most important things for both of you. Your top 5 priorities at the wedding that you can't live without. And make sure that you kind of file those down, compromise if you need to, and outline the top 5 that you're willing to spend a little bit more money because you think it adds a lot of value to the wedding overall. That way, as you get to plan more of the details, you'll quickly recognize areas that aren't as important to both of you that you can maybe budget a little bit better and save time that way. For example, my fiance and I really value music. That's a major thing for him and his culture, and I think that having a great DJ and really good music just totally enhances the entire life of the party, gets people energized, excited, out on the dance floor, things like that. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't skimping on that aspect, that if we needed to pay a little bit more for a DJ, maybe we could cut back in some other areas like invitations or florals or something like that. So make sure from the beginning, sit down with your fiance, plan out those top 5 priorities. Also, along the same line, it's very common to see the bride taking on the most of the activity and the energy when it comes into the wedding planning process, which is obvious. Our culture really gears wedding planning towards women and the bride, which is all great. However, try to incorporate your fiance into the wedding planning process, whatever that looks like. Maybe one of you, maybe it's the groom, is more naturally inclined to do the planning. Regardless, make sure you both are working together as a cohesive team. This is important for a few reasons. One, this other person is also getting married. So their opinion should be heard just as much as yours. But 2, they may think of things that you didn't think of. For example, specific questions to ask vendors that would eventually save you money. Or they may think of creative ideas as far as decorations go, or just the flow of events throughout the night. So incorporate your significant other, your fiance, in the wedding planning process. Make sure they're involved, and this will also really help you to learn how to work together as a team to solve problems. Planning a wedding can be a big deal and cause a lot of stress for couples and families in general. So make sure you're working together collaboratively, including them in the process overall. Another tip is use your resources. We are gifted people, you, me, and our friends are also gifted people in different areas. So make sure you're tapping into that. If you love to bake, for example, consider making some of your own wedding desserts. Or if that stresses you out, if maybe you have a friend that's really great at baking or making cookies or something, ask them if they would be interested in getting involved in contributing to your wedding in that way. We personally knew someone who loves to do graphic design as a hobby. And she reached out and was like, hey, if you are interested in it, I would love to help you guys make your save the dates and wedding invitations. So we were thrilled by that. She has already made our save the dates and they look incredible. I love how they turned out. And we're so happy that not only are we saving a bit of money by doing it this way, but it makes our wedding more personal and more unique to us versus just going online, using some sort of web template to create our own save the dates, things like that. What I will say as a disclaimer there is don't expect your friends and family to contribute their services to you or expect them to want to offer those for free. So if you have a friend who's a great photographer, she may be totally willing to do your wedding, but don't expect her to do it for free. Don't expect her to give you a huge discount because ultimately that's up to them. They, are the ones providing the service. So just be courteous to that. Make sure that you're working with them, that you don't expect them to just offer their services for free or for a super cheap discount, because if you were on the flip side of that, you would want to make sure that you're also being compensated well for your services. Another big tip, which is probably the easiest tip and super obvious but goes under the radar, is when you're working with vendors or talking to your venue, just ask if they have discounts. Simply asking the question of, are you guys running any deals right now? Is there any way to negotiate some of these prices? Things like that. There's often a huge room for negotiating prices on services, on products, on time, and you can end up saving yourself a lot of money simply by diving into it, not being afraid to ask the question of, is there a way we can maybe swap this for that? Or instead of doing 8 hours, can we just use your service for 6? Because I think that will really cover the entire amount of time that we'll need you for. Things like that. And one of the areas that we saw this personally be really useful is in the area of our photographer. So our photographer is awesome. We love her work, but we ultimately decided that we really didn't want to spend the money on engagement pictures. We actually decided that my mom would take some of our engagement pictures for us. My fiance Carlos has a newer iPhone with a really good camera. So we just got dressed up in clothes that we like, that we feel comfortable in. We went out to a beautiful place close by my parents' house, and we had my mom just take a whole bunch of pictures. They turned out great. I had a few people reach out and say, oh my gosh, who did your pictures? They turned out so great. And while they're obviously not the most professional pictures, they look good. They're what we needed for the purpose. We were able to post them on social media to do an announcement. We're gonna throw some of them on our wedding website, things like that. And all that to say, when we had our conversation initially with our photographer about pricing, we said, hey, we already kind of did our whole engagement picture thing. Is there a way we can take that out of the package and reduce our cost a bit? We ended up cutting our cost down by like $400 or $500 total for needing her as our wedding photographer. And she even offered to give us maybe an extra hour or two at the wedding to take more pictures if that's something that we wanted. So there's lots of wiggle room there. People are willing to offer discounts and deals if you are willing to work with them as well. So all that to say, just ask. You will be really glad you did. Another big tip is along the lines of trying to decide what's most important for you and your fiance in the wedding. One of the biggest areas that I think people spend money on in a wedding, but the guests really don't care at all, is wedding favors. And I don't want to offend anyone here because some people may put lots of time and lots of love into their wedding favors, and that's great. If that's important to you, you do it. You go, honey boo boo, like it's good. But to be honest, I've been a wedding guest at a lot of weddings, and I can't tell you any of the wedding guest favors that I received at those weddings. So I don't know if that's the same case for you, but a lot of times favors either just get left behind or forgotten, or people just really don't care and throw them away. I mean, it's just one of those things that unless wedding favors are super important to you and your fiance, just don't do them. I don't think anyone's gonna miss them. And if you are dedicated to doing something on behalf of your guest, consider doing some sort of charity donation. So I'm like standing recording this in my window, and the post officer just walked by the window and was like, "So, what you do to record a video?" Great. Anyways, yes. So if you're considering doing favors, consider making a donation on behalf of your guests instead of providing them a tangible something to go home with. Another quick tip is attend bridal shows, especially early on, right after you got engaged and or just at the beginning of your wedding planning process. There's usually a lot of bridal shows happening throughout the year, typically in the fall or in like January, February time. And a lot of times they're either free or the tickets are really pretty cheap. And what that will do is, one, it'll expose you to tons of vendors that service your area where you're getting married. But two, there's usually a bunch of deals and discounts going on that day of the show. I was actually in Texas and attended a bridal show there, which wasn't super practical because a lot of the vendors were just servicing Texas, so I didn't hire them for our wedding, which is taking place in Illinois. But it did still give me tons of good ideas, and I actually ended up winning, which I'm not going to use, which is pretty tragic, but winning a free like mirror photo booth thing for guests, which they valued at like $1,000. I don't know if it was actually $1,000, but all that to say, it's super easy to get discounts and deals at these bridal shows, bridal expos, for very cheap to no cost at all. The last tip is maybe choose a venue that has a lot of natural beauty of its own, just to avoid spending a lot of costs on decorations overall. So for us personally, when we were looking for a venue, we were thinking we didn't really want it to be in a hotel or anything like that. We weren't really committed to any particular church. And so we were just sort of open. We weren't really sure what we were looking for. But when we decided to have the wedding in Illinois, because that was sort of the central meeting point for a lot of our guests that would be attending, we narrowed it down to a place that is an old historic mansion built in the early 1900s that has since been turned into just a public park. So there are hiking grounds, there are like campsites, things like that. But there's also like gorgeous manicured gardens, and obviously this well-preserved historic mansion there as well. And the great thing about all of that is we are really not spending hardly anything on separate decorations for the ceremony or the reception space, simply because the grounds itself, the gardens and the home are so beautiful that you don't want to add anything to that, because it'll almost take away from the natural beauty that is there. So just keep that in mind. You'll probably end up spending a lot more on decorations if you have your wedding or your reception in more of just a plain building or something that's used for just generic event spaces, if that makes sense. So to keep this video from getting super long, because I know our last video when we were doing the road trip from Texas to Michigan was way too long, so my apologies there. But I will go ahead and wrap this one up. I'm sure I will be coming back to you guys with more tips and tricks as we continue through our wedding planning journey. But just one thought to kind of summarize overall, something that we talked about a lot from the beginning and that has helped us really stay grounded and focused when all the wedding planning can become stressful, is your wedding is just one night of your lives. Obviously, it's going to be a really incredible, really special night, a night you'll never forget, and one that is a beautiful celebration of you and your significant other. But it's just that, it's one night. And ultimately, it's the celebration of you guys joining your lives together that is the most beautiful thing. It's not the cake, it's not the venue, it's not even the dress, it's not all that. It's just being with the person that you love and surrounded by your friends and family and the people that love you the most. So ultimately, while it can be so easy to get caught up in throwing the biggest party, the best wedding ever, to almost one-up other people who have had weddings before you, just keep in mind that it's one night, and for your guests, they attend lots of weddings throughout their lifetime. They are not coming to yours to expect to have the best night of their entire lives. Of course, they want to come and have a great time, but they are not buying a ticket to your wedding saying, I better get a good value for this ticket because if not, then I'm demanding a refund. No. I mean, ultimately, if people are coming to your wedding, they should be coming because they love both of you, they support both of you, they don't really care all that much about how incredibly out of this world your wedding is. So just keep that in mind. Have a great time as you're planning, even when things get stressful. Enjoy the season and enjoy the process, because ideally you're only going to be doing this once in your life and you really want to enjoy it while it lasts. So hopefully that's encouraging to you guys. Let us know if you have any other tips and tricks from weddings that you have planned. We'd love to share those on our Face the Fear platform. Obviously, I am always open and accepting to any sort of tips and tricks you can offer to us, or marital advice. That would be great too. I've noticed that a lot of times when my fiance Carlos asks people or tells people, hey, I'm getting married, or hey, I'm engaged, then they'll often instantly come back to him with, oh, here's, tips and tricks that, I've learned in my marriage or whatever. But often when I tell people that I'm engaged or getting married, they just sort of say congratulations and that's it, which I don't know if that's like a guy versus girl type of thing, but I am more than open to receiving any and all marital advice that you have to offer to us. So leave those in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our newest content from Face the Fear. We're always working on creating new and exciting things for you guys. So let us know any feedback, any questions that you have. Thanks again for watching this video, and until next time, we will see you next time. Bye!